Silent stalking from Cold Cuts. Ozzy stretched out on his cot and mindlessly zapped through TV channels. He stopped at the shopping network. Two folksy pitchmen, Clyde and Lamar, hawked a neo-medieval knife collection. Nice beard, Clyde. Is it real? And that camo shirt. If you had any muscles, you'd be wearing a vest. I'm going to toss one of my favorites, Lamar, Clyde said. The 26-inch Inquisitor. Lamar looked shocked. This is a Knives at Home exclusive, folks. Clyde lost his mind. It's going to take more than a trucker hat to make that brown suit look country, Lamar. You got to get in on this opportunity at only $299.99, Clyde said. I'm even throwing in a furniture-grade stand. Lamar held up a miniature Bowie knife. Now here's a Clyde-sized knife, the mini troll. The TV crew laughed in the background. Lamar stuck the tiny knife in a big log. Clyde nodded knowingly. Well, Lamar, every real knife collector knows it's not the size of your blade, it's how you use it. Ozzy glared at the television and did something he hadn't done in a long, long time. He turned the television off. Ozzy tossed the remote on the floor. He folded his arms tight against his chest. Clyde and Lamar receded into a tiny point of light, and the screen went black, and so did the room. Ozzy stared up at the pitch black where the ceiling once was and folded his arms tight against his chest. Clyde and Lamar receded into a tiny point of light and the screen went black, and so did the room. Ozzy stared up at the pitch black where the ceiling once was. The TV had been on 24 hours a day for months. When he turned the damn thing off, it was as if he'd bricked up his only window on the outside world. The room was only 9 feet wide by 12 feet long, but now it felt smaller, much smaller, more like a cryonic chamber. Ozzy became aware of his breathing. The air was thick and heavy. It pressed down on his chest. He couldn't take a deep breath, so he bit off small, bite-sized chunks of air and gulped them down. Then came the silence. He never noticed it before. Now he couldn't imagine how something so monstrous could have stayed hidden for so long. An absorbent stillness enveloped the room and sucked out any trace of sound. Not even an empty echo remained. The silence had been there all along, waiting. The way death waits patiently for that one little slip-up, that one wrong turn, that one last heartbeat. Ozzy wanted to scream, but could not. What if I scream and no sound comes out? What if the silence rips the scream from my throat and devours it before it reaches my ears? He tried to move his fingers, but they felt like they belonged to someone else, someone dead. They were rigid. Ozzy stiffened in terror. The ravenous void that surrounded him swallowed the sum total of all that he was. The room, his body, Ben's cadaver, it all vanished into the belly of nil minus zero. Only his thoughts remained, and they were even darker than the nothingness that consumed him. A suffocating panic squeezed from all directions. An ominous sense of spiritual dread compacted all that was happy into a dense singularity where the dark entered and no light escaped. It was cold and silent and dead. The force of its frozen darkness blew out the gentle flame that burned in the center of his being. Everything that was bright and warm was gone. All that remained was the cold, silent darkness and the fear. He lay paralyzed for an eternity of heartbeats. Ozzy had never been afraid of the dark or even death. His terror went far beyond the fear of simple oblivion. It was like he told Ben if he froze in this barren wasteland, he might have to endure the conscious awareness of the unyielding silence for 1 billion years. He had only experienced the ghastly void for a few minutes, and it was already unbearable. I'll never enjoy the luxury of natural decomposition, no lush green cemetery for me, or the company and kind attention of worms. I'll simply freeze solid in the sterile ice and remain unchanged until the sun goes supernova and incinerates the entire fucking solar system. I can't wait that long to be warm again. I can't. Something tepid crept down Ozzy's cheek. Then he heard a tiny sound, the faint drumbeat of a single tear dropping on his taut canvas cot. Nothing ever sounded so sweet. The silence retreated just enough for Ozzy to take a shallow breath. Ozzy knew exactly what he had to do. There was only one thing noisy enough to keep the silence away for good. He moved one leg, then the other. The dense compression of the room made it almost impossible to move. Ozzy crawled on his hands and knees, patting the floor like a blind man until he found the remote. His hands trembled as he clicked it on. A tiny speck of light in the center of the screen exploded into a cheerful rectangle of vivid color. The shopping channel flashed back on. A young boy ran through a wildflower meadow. He was only a painting on a porcelain collector's plate, but he had everything Ozzy wanted. He seemed so content and carefree. He wore tattered overalls with paisley patches, a plaid shirt, and black high-top sneakers. A cocker spaniel frolicked at his side. An easy breeze tossed his hair as he flew a handmade kite. Its knotted dish-rag tail sketched lazy loops in a watercolor sky. Comfy clouds drifted nowhere in particular above a Norman Rockwell world. Ozzy could breathe again. The silence retreated to its hiding place in the cracks and corners. Everything was the same as before, but now Ozzy knew that somewhere beyond the wildflower meadows, the hideous silence waited for him to turn off the TV.